The United Nations say the Pacific island nation of Tonga suffered significant damage in Saturday's volcanic eruption. The first images are starting to emerge after New Zealand and Australia sent surveillance planes to the area. Communication has been limited after the country's only internet cable was cut. New Zealand is also sending ships carrying water and other supplies. But planes can't land because of a blanket of ash covering the main airport's runway.
A prelude to a violent eruption. On Friday, the Hunga-Tonga-Hunga-Ha'apai volcano sent plumes of smoke and ash shooting into the sky, activity that soon decreased. It would prove to be a brief respite. The next day, the volcano rumbled to life again, in an explosion so powerful it sent shockwaves around the world. Before and after satellite images show how the volcano's sea-level crater had disappeared following the blast. With regular communication lines to Tonga cut off, the world's been relying on satellite phones and images to get a sense of the disaster.
We are still waiting to receive information from Tonga of what is much needed, but we know for sure that there'll be need for clean water because of the ash eruptions and which really damage and causing lots of troubles to the water supplies in Tonga, as most of the people collect water through rain, and this is something very dangerous for them to consume.
Australia and New Zealand have sent surveillance flights to help assess the scale of the damage, especially on Tonga's outer islands, where there are fears the devastation could be immense.
Joining us now is Shane Cronin, a volcanologist from the University of Auckland. Shane, do we know more now about the situation in Tonga after the surveillance flights by New Zealand and Australian planes?
Yeah, good morning. We do know a lot more, and also some of the satellite imagery that's been collected through the UN program. And so we've seen extensive damage due to the tsunami, and also ash fall across most of the islands. Thankfully, the ash fall is not too thick, so mainly around 2 centimetres thick on the main island of Tongatapu, and some of the other islands to the north have looked like they have a little thicker ash, and then the tsunami damage is mainly confined to 2 or 3 very low-lying islands where there's major damage. Most of the others have relatively, major damage, but not, let's say it's not affecting a lot of where the housing is.
So we spoke 24 hours ago, and then you were somewhat optimistic that damage in Tonga itself from the eruption was not that bad. Are you still optimistic about that?
Well, I think that the tsunami damage is slightly more than what I was expecting, and but the ashfall damage is about what we were expecting. So the 2 centimetres of ash is not enough to damage structures, but obviously it needs to be cleaned from the airstrip, and also it needs to be, the water supplies need to be secured. And as your previous correspondent mentioned, around 80% of Tongans use rainwater supplies, particularly outside the main settlement of Nuku'alofa.
Is there any danger of more eruptions, you think?
Yes, there is, and so we're working on very simple scenarios. The largest of these scenarios would be the concern that the upper part of the volcano is now very unstable. So after that initial eruption, the top part of the volcano now is going to be fractured. It's changed its shape a lot. And the concern is if new magma rises into that upper volcano system, it could cause more instability and therefore more explosive events. So that's the worst case scenario we're planning for. The other scenarios would be that the gas-rich magma has now been erupted from the system, and so that the next lot of magma may have an easier path to the surface, and the eruptions may be slightly smaller. So those are the 2 scenarios we're looking at, and because there's no monitoring possible on the volcano at the moment. We really are relying on having frequent visual observations via satellite imagery to see what is happening at the vent side.
Shane Cronin there, a volcanologist from the University of Auckland. Thank you, Shane.
Thanks for the interest again.